Cindy and I have been married for over 35 years, but you know what? The trials don't stop. So enduring the difficulties is a lifelong challenge.
What were some of y'all's initial adjustments or difficulties that you faced in your marriage, and how did you respond to that?
Yeah, for us, it's current, actually, and recurring, just some ailments and physical sickness. And for me, it showed a lack of compassion, lack of understanding. It affected our social calendar. It affected our sexual intimacy. And it was something that I wanted to say, well, there's bound to be a diagnosis or a pill or a shot to take care of this and get us back to good. When in fact, not understanding my wife, not loving my wife through that, and placing her needs above dinner with friends or a date night we had planned, and coming to her needs more so than just to check off something that we were required to be at. Another thing that comes to mind as far as moving and her trying to find a job all at the same time. A couple of months into marriage, just finishing grad school for her, and all those things combined at once to where we could live in one county and her work in a different one, not something that you want to face. Conversationally, we struggled through that, trying to figure out what's best for her, for each of us, and just understanding that we don't have all the answers. And it wasn't our first inclination, at least mine, to go to God in prayer for that. But quickly, God put something together in front of us, and it just made clear sense that this is what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, and we really, in the very first parts of our marriage, realized that we're very different people. Obviously, men and women are built different, but also just had different orders of operations about going about things. Clay's very organized and, just meticulous and planned out, and I'm more of the free spirit and, it's just over here and over there. And so some of those adjustments were difficult, and, we had to kind of learn to work together on different things like our budget or, just the fact that he sits in a cubicle all day and I stand up and go around like crazy all day. So end of the day, the way that we process things. And we came up with this saying, which isn't copyrighted, but it's NWJD, and it's not wrong, just different. Meaning, you
I'm seeing a bumper sticker.
Right, I know. Exactly.
I've got a bracelet somewhere.
So, it's really easy in those first kind of years of marriage. You can become critical of small things that aren't really important when it's really just something different. It's not that it's wrong, it's just not how you would do it. And, for some of those bigger things, we really had to step back and say, do we trust God that He's going to come through for us, or are we just in that panicky mode? And I think sometimes, when those things happen, you panic and you just want to meet with the pastor or have someone pray for it. You just want to resolve it right then. And sometimes it just takes some time and the Holy Spirit, and then that opportunity comes along and God's like, yes, that door opens. So, not just jumping to some decision, but really pulling back, praying, realizing we are trusting God, He's going to come through, and we are going to wait on Him. So that was a big lesson that we've learned.
Yeah, for us, we've been married for 14 years now, and you read books and they say you're going to hit that 5 to 7 year itch, and then you're going to hit that 13 to 15 year, and that held very true for us. Part of where we came from, we met and got engaged and married all within 9 months. And after knowing each other for a month and a half, we were engaged. And so we don't talk about dating one another. We just we're like, remember when we were engaged? We just skipped a couple of steps in there. And so that first year of marriage for us was awful.
Hell.
It was, because we were trying to figure out who is this man that I married. And I'll never forget, and later on in life we've talked about this, but we were both riding in the car together, and I remember distinctly thinking, I have made a commitment to be with this man for the rest of my life, and I'm not even sure I knew who I'm riding next to. And it was this awakening moment of, what have I done? And so, I mean, it was just this.
Nothing personal.
But for that first year of marriage, we did not leave and cleave well. People will use the term family of origin, and we were more committed to our families of origin than we were to each other. And we allowed my parents and their influences to make decisions for us, and we allowed his parents and their decisions to make influences for us. And it took us a long time to find our voice and to drop and dispel our parents' voices. And realize, okay, this is what I'm saying to you, and this is what you're saying to me. We had tons of arguments over priorities, and we were in pursuit of things, but they were not common things. And we were passionate about what we were pursuing, and we could appreciate what the other person was pursuing, but there wasn't a give and a take and a balance back and forth. It was always high demand. Like, these are my priorities, and you should respect them. It was a demand of the other person to respect those priorities. One of the other things is we were major dream crushers, and I'll never forget, we signed up for a newly married class at our church, and the pastor had us go to separate parts inside the building, and we were supposed to take, I think, like the next 10 minutes and lay out 5 common goals that you wanted to achieve. We were in one of the largest arguments of our entire marriage.
Couldn't even get one.
Couldn't even come up with one that was in common. It was, I wanted this. Well, I wanted this. There was no balance in there. One of our other major arguments was over a stir-fry wok. And
we have not broken that out since.
No, it was a wedding gift to us. And so I'm in there cooking in the kitchen, and Nate's going to tell me how to cook. And it just fired up.
Mistake number 1.
Oh my goodness, it fired up immediately. And we put that wok back in its box underneath the shelf. We still own it, but we've never used it again because there's so much about it.
There's a lot of baggage in that wok. Maybe you should re-gift it.
We don't want it.
But I think, you talk about, like, what's your initial response to that? And I think immediately, like, it's taken years, and we're still learning how to handle that and how to handle that well. And initially, your response is, for me, it was to hide and to isolate and to not want to go back to that place and deal with rejection or deal with issues, but to just say, you know what, I'll just keep to myself over here. And over time, you become 2 separate people coexisting in one home. And so for us, what we learned out of that was we had to learn how to speak our hearts and how to speak from our emotions and how to identify those and to say, not you did this to me and you did this to me, but when you did that, I felt lonely. I felt sad. I felt angry. I felt shame. And to be able to identify those things, because when you hear that from your wife saying, when you said that to me, I felt ashamed. But when you talk about perspective, like that all of a sudden drops your defenses. And instead of being defensive about what I said that she got upset about, all of a sudden I realized I wounded her. And that was not my intent. And so we had to learn how to speak our hearts and speak our emotions and identify those well.
Clay and Amanda, based on what you shared earlier, what have you learned, and how, in the next difficulties that come in your marriage, how can you take what you've learned and apply it to those difficulties, and how you'll respond?
I know for me, I can have quite a reaction, an emotional reaction, an emotional response to something that comes up out of the blue. And it was said earlier about expecting the best in your spouse. And I don't often do that because I'm critical of myself, so much so. And my best friend in the world, the mirror that I see every day, I'm also critical of her so much. And when difficulties come, and they will, I need to be slow to speak, and I need to be tender in my response. I need to know that she's not coming against me with a situation, with words. I need to know that no matter what it is, God still has us in his hand. And that he has, and he will, and he always will watch out for us, watch out for our marriage.
That's good.
I don't have a history of knowing that. My parents divorced when I was really young. But I know he protects us. And he blesses us through one another. And you can't help but smile at that.